The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Step outside of your comfort zone. See the world with a whole new perspective. Join us and experience the unexplained on the Paranormal View.
And welcome everybody right here to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight. Those in the chat room and those listening from around the world, we appreciate each and every one. And I'm sure that there's still a lot of people that's locked down, can't get out and go do things. So we hope you just sit back and enjoy the show tonight. We've got a great show lined up. And with us tonight, we have Barbara Duncan.
I am here.
And we have Jeffrey Gould.
He may have dropped off the call.
Oh, he did. Oh, wow. Well, until he gets back, do you think you can introduce our guest, Barbara?
Well, I think I know who she is.
Oh, okay.
We've talked several times. She's an awesome guest, as a matter of fact. I assume paranormal investigator, psychic, and paranormal parapsychology scholar, which is different than paranormal. Please get that right, folks. Yeah. Oh, well, it really does make a difference because I've studied parapsychology and the paranormal. They are two different little beasts. We both know. Yes. It's our guest, Darcie McGrath.
Hi, everybody.
Yay.
All right.
And, we'll probably have a better introduction once Jeff gets back on, because he does all the bio stuff.
Yeah, let me see if
But it's always lots of fun just talking with Darcie.
I
like your shop. Yeah.
All right.
It's so much
Let me call him back in here. Well,
yeah.
Jeff, are you on?
Nope.
No.
He's
Okay.
not. Because we can talk a little bit about... Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the difference between paranormal and parapsychology, because I don't think a lot of people know.
Right. And, there really isn't a big difference, as it is a field of study. Paranormal is basically anything outside the normal, something that cannot be explained by regular senses or science, or standard science, I should say. Parapsychology is the study of human consciousness, or trying to determine the origins of human consciousness, where it resides, and if it survives the person themselves that is affecting the atmosphere through psychokinesis, telekinesis, RSPK, current spontaneous psychokinesis, which is otherwise known as poltergeist.
You guys were muted. I tried to call Jeff, and it blanked you guys out, and it took me a second to get you guys back on. So,
oh no!
Yeah.
You mean that whole conversation?
Yeah, and I was trying to get you back on. Matter of fact, I even added you to another call, and you didn't pick up on it. So, Jeff, are you back on? No. Let me add Jeff back in here then, because I got him right here. Hopefully.
Okay, right, he can add himself back in too.
Well, he was trying. I don't think he did very good. So, I'm calling him now, trying to get him back in. Anyway.
So nobody heard our lovely little discussion?
Nobody heard it. You can do it all again. That's because I didn't even hear it.
Darcie, let's talk about the difference between paranormal investigations and parapsychology.
Sure. Paranormal investigating tends to focus on the external stimulus going on in the house, whether you're hearing audio phenomenon or experiencing visual phenomenon. The paranormal investigators will go through using their equipment to gauge the environment and try to capture some of that phenomenon that the experiencer in the location might be experiencing. It helps give them peace of mind that this is not something that they're making up in their head. So that serves a distinct purpose. Parapsychology actually studies human consciousness, so it looks for the haunting within. So it's actually looking at psychic ability, gauging psychic ability, how the person's consciousness might be affecting the location and maybe even adding to the paranormal activity going on in the house that might be separate from an external entity that might be in the house. So while the paranormal investigators are going around with their equipment, a parapsychologist might go around. Oh, I think we got Jeffrey back.
Yeah. Yes.
There he is.
And the parapsychologist also would be looking at, I would assume, the subjects thinking, is this a possible case of telekinesis? Is this a possible case of common ESP? Or is there something else going on there too? So that you're absolutely right. There can be live human reasons behind paranormal activity.
Mm-hmm. And if you're lucky enough to have a parapsychologist that has a strong psychological background, they might be able to screen for other things, such as maybe possible bipolar or schizophrenia or other mental disorders that might be adding to the situation. I'm not a psychologist. I would like to hopefully finish that degree someday. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of parapsychologists that do have backgrounds in that, and they can screen for those things.
Mm-hmm. And it's also really interesting to see that there are branches of that too. Like a lot of neurobiologists are discussing, we really haven't completely evolved as a human species yet. Our brains will probably still be evolving. So that there are differences in how some people behave on a more evolutionary scale.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we've talked about that in our human consciousness class. For anybody that's interested in learning more about human consciousness, the Rhine is doing ongoing online classes right now, if I can give a shameless plug. We're taking one right now with Professor Loyd Auerbach, who is a parapsychologist and has been for many, many years. And we actually talked about some of that in our class about near-death experiences. Mm-hmm. And how are they really near-death experiences, or do we just have a failed understanding of what death is? Do we have we have a clinical definition of what death is to us right now, but even with our equipment, our medical equipment that we have plugged into, the client who's having this phenomena happening to them, we're still grasping at what that technology is telling us. So,
well, I think we talked before about this. There's a book called The Origins of the Human Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind by Julian Jaynes. And even back then, he was talking about early human consciousness levels and the voices from God, etc., and the fact that the mind hadn't quitely split into the left brain, right brain hemispheres. So there was that audio hallucinations that were actually one part of the brain trying to talk to the other part of the brain. So even back then, you find an evolutionary process that may still be happening here, because we haven't quite figured out how the brain totally works yet either.
Right, yeah. And back then we often attributed those visions to paranormal sources, which nowadays we're looking at a little differently. Mm-hmm. Shamans being able to receive information through ritual and people having prophetic visions. Nowadays we look at that more as clairvoyance and prognostication versus prophecy experiences. Mm-hmm. So our understanding has updated as we study. So.
Yeah. Paraanthropology is just a lovely subject to get into.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. If anybody's interested in that, Dr. Christopher Larson at North Carolina Wilmington does quite a bit with that, and so does Professor Loyd Auerbach.
There is an online magazine now called the Journal of Paraanthropology.
Paraanthropology, yes, I love that.
Lovely book. Lovely book. I love it. Yeah.
So everything falls into the category of para.
Yeah, it's outside the standard scientific understanding. So, yeah. And that's where I have a lot of conversations with people that have experiences. And I say, well, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. Well, prove to me it's not paranormal. I said, I just did. It could it could be that you have other explanations for how this could be happening. And they just look at me puzzled like they don't understand. And I think, media feeds into that. But they kind of forget what the definition of paranormal really is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are we all there?
Yeah, we're still on. I thought Barbara was fixing to ask something else, so.
Well, we were just talking. We could talk shop for hours right now, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, there's a lot happening. And, it's interesting that it's happening now, and if there is an uptick in paranormal activity, and how much of it is simply pent up energy, as we talk about poltergeist cases being nothing more than pent up energy and nowhere to basically funnel it to.
Matter of fact, I got this article that we were talking about tonight with the New York Times. I got it from the Paranormal Research Foundation, and they turned me on to, because I'm on their Facebook site, and I was reading it, and I posted it to my site, and I half jokingly said, well, there goes my paper idea, because I always thought that would be a fascinating paper to write about ghosts in quarantine, what kind of experiences where people have. So who answers but Brian Williams, the head of the PRF? And so when are you going to write it, basically, is what he said. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Well, now you're stuck.
Oh, yeah. Well, we started hashing out, how could we do this? How do we clarify experiences versus, COVID virus. I mean, one of the main symptoms of the COVID virus is, of course, high fever.
Right.
And it's like, well, how do you know people are hallucinating with the high fever? How do you rule that person didn't have COVID? And how do you ask that without violating HIPAA? And and so we were kind of tossing some ideas back and forth. But I think a quantitative study of the number of people. So if anybody wants to contact me at my Facebook site and tell me their stories, I would love to hear them. Well, so if you have any listeners tonight that are having experiences out there, I'd love to hear them, and maybe I can plug a survey in and have them feed me some information on that.
Oh, good idea.
So with parapsychology, when someone says they heard something or seen something, through parapsychology, you start checking to see if there is something or if it's something else altogether. And when you get rid of everything else, does anything lead back to saying, oh, yeah, it must be a spirit or something?
Well, there's never going to be 100% definitive, yes, it's a spirit, but you can definitely add more evidence to the fact that it could be. Any skeptic's going to find a way to tear this apart, unfortunately. We're not at a stage right now where we can say 100% and prove it that we have a spirit here, but we can rule things out specifically, like, again, were you suffering a high fever at the time? Have you been diagnosed with COVID? Have you had paranormal experiences before this at this location? Have you had paranormal experiences at other locations before this? Has your family had experiences within their own family in different locations? And, things like that. You can go down a survey checklist and start feeding into the possibility that, oh, maybe this could be a psychic experience, a mediumship, or, psychic experience where they have really witnessed something. Now, it's kind of, you have to rule some things out. And I get these cases every year, and everybody does too, that does paranormal investigating, where people are outside in the summertime enjoying themselves and having a blast, and then they come back in the fall, and all of a sudden they forget what their house sounds like. They forget about the furnace checking on, and oh my gosh, the bangs and the shimmies in the register are suddenly a ghost, or the animals that are digging into the attic for the wintertime to hunker down are scratching and clawing at the ceiling, and oh my gosh, we got a ghost up there. And it's quick. People can be quick to jump to judgment that they have a paranormal thing going on, and you have to rule those things out. And I've done that before.
Okay.
Where I've been into houses and had to dig through attics.
I actually like in one first or second Conjuring movie, which is kind of loosely based on Lorraine and Ed Warren. they do show them in one house showing that the sounds they're hearing are the pipes
Yeah.
up in the attic. And I was like, that's impressive. They didn't just jump right into Zach Bagan. Well, you must have a demon territory.
Yeah, no, that came later.